Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of our classified staff workshop. Thank you all for joining us once again. This event, as I said on the first day, is backed by popular demand, and we are thrilled to provide it to you. The topics were all suggested to us, so we hope you find them valuable. And if everyone wants to start again with saying hello in the chat box with their name and school, and maybe something that's exciting that's going on at your school or with you professionally. The other day, someone shared with us that they've hired, they have a new hire, a chief academic officer. That was wonderful to hear. We like to hear that good news. So please feel free to share that with us. I also want to say quickly, we're giving away 10 Amazon.com gift cards over the next 5 weeks. All MCCA members in good standing are eligible, and entering to win is easy. We already have 2 winners. I don't remember their names, but I can share that with you here in a little bit. I can look that up. Just quickly, if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box and pop up. She can answer them. And then please connect with us today using the hashtag MyMCCA. We encourage you to take a picture of you on this webinar, share it, and then use that hashtag. Administrative assistant in the agriculture division with Crowder College. I have worked with her a lot since coming on to MCCA. She was the advisory board president when I came on, and she is so organized. So she's filled with a lot of professional knowledge. So she was the first person that popped into my head when this topic was suggested, say yes to say no. I'm always happy to work with her. I can't speak highly enough about her. So I will now hand it over to Karen.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is a first for me because I stand in front of a TV camera advertising for our rodeos and things like that we promote from the college, but I've never stood in front of my computer screen and not seen you. So I hope everybody is having a great morning. We are going to do a topic today that I struggle with. So I'm not real sure how they decided that I could do this, seeing how I never tell Kaylin no. So, but we're going to work through this together. First off, everybody can hear me, I hope. If you can't, please type in on the chat, and they'll work on it on the back side to make sure that they can troubleshoot it with you to make sure that they can hear you. So, so in the spirit of things, I have my PowerPoint, which is always pretty for me. I can't do anything that's not got, you know, some kind of a Western turquoise thing to it. So here we go. So let's do a little bit of talking about saying no to say yes. If we do this, do you have any confidence in saying no? Well, saying no is hard. If you say no to your husband, if you're saying no to your children, you're saying no to your coworker, it's hard. So we all are going to gain some confidence by saying no. But when we say no, here's the second part of it. Do you feel guilty? Of course you feel guilty because you're a people pleaser. That's what I am. I cannot stand it if people are not excited about what I'm doing because, you know, they have to be a part of it. So do you ever overcommit? Raise your hand. Yep, that's me. I overcommit daily. But, you know, I want to do things because that's what I am. I'm a doer. I'm a sharer. I don't have a lot of good in me if I just sit around and do nothing. So why don't we do a little bit of talking through me and you listening? And some of the yeses, I can see the heads nodding. I know I feel them nodding. But we want to do a little bit of talking about why you say yes. Our workshop today, virtual that it is going to help you to learn some tools. It's going to help you to identify negative and learn to say no with assertiveness. Saying no without feeling guilty is a big plus because if you don't say no once in a while, you will be totally burned out, you'll be totally wore out, and not able to do the best job you can do. So why don't we look at our next slide, and it's going to give us a quote. This is a good quote to take a picture of, put up in your office, and remind yourself that you have to say no to a lot of good things in order to be able to say yes to a lot of great things. Great things happen to great people. And classified staff, we are great people. So everybody think back, and let's do a little mind game. And what was the last time that you overdid something just to please someone? Was that today? Was that 5 minutes before this meeting started? Or are you doing it right now just to please me? Oh, sorry. That one just fell in there. Y'all, you can't see my humor, and that's really hard for me. But I like to talk, and so I don't want everybody to feel overwhelmed with what I'm saying. So let's look at reasons why you say yes. If we look at this and we go to playing around with our mind, we find that we desire to please. That is something instilled in so many people that if you don't have this desire to please, then you're setting out on your own little limb, and if it breaks, then what do you have? You have nobody to pick you up. So you want to make them happy, and that brings on the second point, your fear of hurting somebody. I cannot disappoint somebody. If I disappoint you in this presentation today, I want you to really blame it on the fact that we're not in together, because face-to-face together would have helped this presentation so much with the inner conversation. But don't, being afraid to disappoint can't rule your life. So you can't go above and beyond all the time. Guilt. Do you feel so selfish? If you say no, did you really turn them down for the wrong reason? Sense of duty. We all should have a sense of duty. I owe it to them. What a statement. I feel that if we don't pay attention to that one point, that out of duty and out of respect for everyone else, you sometimes can overstretch yourself, and you end up and you can't do it. So, need for power. If you say no, they'll think I can't handle it. So then that works on me by saying, then they won't ask me to do it again. And did I do it wrong the first time? So don't think that you need the power all the time. You can say no without hurting someone's feelings just because you've got another priority going on in your life. So as women, we struggle with this saying no because we're trained to accommodate and put others' needs first. It's a hard cycle to break. And, I'm not saying that the men don't have this, but as women, we find we nurture, and we are the ones who want to put their needs above ours. And we can't do that all the time. If you do that all the time, then you're going to pay a high price. What's that price you're going to pay with that? You're going to pay with increased stress, loss and less energy. You have resentment. And what do those three usually add up to being? They add up to being a lower self-esteem. We have to stay positive in our lives so that we can push that out and make someone else's life positive. Because isn't that the goal? Isn't that always our goal? In anything we do, if we're accepting a job from our coworker who is not handling it well in the situation that we've all got going on right now, and you take over an extra part of that, you're helping them. But now then when the next coworker comes and sees that you've taken over something for them, here they come with more stuff to pile on you. You've got to be able to find that dividing line to help you not pay that big price. Because when we say yes and we really mean to say yes, we can give it our full effort. We've got more energy to do it. Your motivation, wow, it's above the limit, and the creativity will just flow. You'll be able to better your project if you say yes and really mean it. If you say yes and really mean it, then it's not costing you those things above, the stress, the resentment. So keep in mind that what I'm trying to present to you today are just some good ideas, because I'm the world's worst. I have such a hard time saying no to anything. My husband will tell you that I have 15 projects going on at home and 20 projects going on here at the school, and he ends up in the middle of all of them. So I am trying my best to learn more, and when I was asked to do this topic, they all laughed at me because I'm not that person that says no, but I'm trying really hard to find a balance. As we look at this screen and we see these things on the right, you're looking at what we're trying to balance by saying yes or no. I mean, if you take and pull things out, if you start pulling out time with your friends, or if you start pulling away, you didn't have time to have lunch, can you see that scale becoming unbalanced? Now you put those things back in because you said no to a little extra training from that learn side of it, and you get the balance back in because that you took away a little time with your friends. Balancing, finding a main balance is easier to do when you step back from yourself and try not to put yourself, try to hold on to a little bit of sanity, try not to continue making these decisions without taking time to think about them. And we want to always remember that it's not bad to put you first. The only one person who knows really how far you're stretched, how thin your piece of string is right now, is you. So even though you can't put it into words, you can put it into your thoughts and say, am I about to do something, add something else to my plate that could break my string and make me snap? Please, if you have any questions or comments about anything I'm saying, I can see your chat. I can see what you're putting in there, and I'll try to take a break and answer any of those questions if we have any as we're going through the presentation. So finding that balance, and that's hard. I talk freely about balance, but I'm not real sure that I'm good at it. So what are my needs? Everybody take a minute and think to yourself, and what do you need? My answer to the question would be, I need about 15 minutes of downtime that I can turn my radio on, and it's just me and my radio. The other thing is my need for silence. Can't really understand that because I like to talk so much, but that's one of my needs. Every once in a while, I need silence, and I just have to go find that place and do it and find my silence. So when you're also looking at that, how much of my time energy and resources do I need to meet them? Okay, so now my need was silence and I said about 15 minutes in that period of time. Okay, so what resources do I need for that? The main resources I need for doing that is people to leave me alone. So there's once in a while you have to tell that husband to say, don't call me, don't text me, don't send me an emoji. I need a break. I'm 15 minutes, nothing happens. And then that builds my energy back up, and I'm ready to go face and tackle the next project. What do I generally want to do for others? Man, that's a broad question. Genuinely, what I want to do for others is what I would want them to do for me. So if I genuinely want others to feel good, I want them to have an opportunity to go and do something by taking on a small bit of their job responsibility. I'm hoping that they would be genuinely ready to do that for me. How much time do I want to give in helping others meet their needs? Okay, we just talked about balancing. We're trying to talk about how to say no. So now we got to find this answer about this time. And time, think about it, there's 24 hours in a day. Of that 24 hours of the day, you should be getting between 6 and 8 hours of sleep. All right, cut that out of there. You need to eat a meal, takes on an average of 30 minutes. So if you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, there's another hour and a half of your day gone. And you need bathroom breaks, and virtual meetings are the best for bathroom breaks, right? Because you can leave me on, you can go do whatever you want to do, and then you can come back. And nobody got up and looked at you and had that look, and where is that person going? So now then we're down to about 12 hours. Most people work a 9-hour day. So in that 9-hour day that you're working, that should be doing things for you need to get accomplished. So we're down to 3 hours. So how much time of that 3 hours are you willing and able to help others? That's a question only you can answer. I don't want you to think that I'm saying you have to say no all the time. I'm not telling you that you should say yes all the time. What I'm trying to put forward today is to let you know how important it is to keep a balance. Keep your mind open to saying no without the guilt that usually comes with it. We kind of are looking at a little bit of an easier method in this. So I found some ideas here on some searches of being able to tell us easier ways to say no. We're going to go through these. We'll go through them fairly quickly. I can put this PowerPoint out to Kaylin and Bobby, and if you want it, you're welcome to have it to share. So the best thing I can tell you is smile. If you're going to tell somebody no, you need to smile because they're going to notice. If you look at them and say, you know, whatever, I can't do it. But if you look at them and you smile and say, hey guys, I'm sorry. This is my time and this is the only time I get. So if you put a smile with that, did you just take that no easier? Well, I would have. Stand up. That's what I'm doing right now. I don't have the shoes on. But stand up. When you present yourself standing up, you're at eye level with somebody. And now the psychological advantage is back in your ball court. So don't worry about what you want to think is going on in your life. If you need to face something, Even if you're talking to them on the phone and you need to say something that's going to come hard to you of saying no, try standing up. Try making yourself give that out. How many of us are told that your body language when you're listening to somebody, you really aren't there? So keep your body and that language you're putting out as still as possible. Well, for somebody who likes to ask questions, somebody who thinks they need to know, you got to avoid asking some questions if you don't really want your time and giving it to them. So questions as, and just when do you need this by? That indicates you're interested and indicates that you might, or gives them false hope. That would be the best thing, that your body language has got to slow down. And we are told as kids, don't interrupt somebody. If I'm talking, don't interrupt me. But there are times that is necessary, because if you don't interrupt them and say, hey, you know, I'm sorry, but I've got to go take care of this, you are implying that you don't have the extra time to be able to help them, and they might get the message the contrary, but you have to do that at times. You have to be able to find the balance in, here we go with that word again, and tell them, oops, sorry, gotta go, gotta run. Last piece of my easier ways to say no is to preempt them. That statement that it says there at the last, if you're looking at the PowerPoint, it says, hi there, I know what you want. You're coming back to ask me if I'll finish that Anderson report. Wish I could help you out, but I just can't. So maybe if you stop, it's kind of like stopping the bleeding. If you stop them before it starts, you might be able to get a little further in it. And it's not that you're being mean. It's not that you're being cruel. And it's not that you don't have an interest in their project too. I have my way I want things done, and that's how I want it done. But don't be afraid to ask for help. When you get to this point and you need something, don't be afraid to ask for help. We are always that person that is trying to move forward and be a better coworker, be a better husband, be better to your husband or to your kids. But you got to kind of keep that in mind that maybe they're there to help you. Maybe it's not that you're trying to be weak. It's just you need help. So I have the meeting piece of it, we all have to go to meetings. And right now going to a meeting and having to do them live or having to do them virtual is not something that is easy to schedule, easy to keep scheduling and not knowing where to go with them. So if you have to tell them, I need to let everybody know right now at the top, I can't fit this into my schedule, you need to tell them that. Don't be afraid to tell them that. We are looking at different ways to better ourselves, and so I've come up with this little analogy. Everybody's looking at my picture, I hope, right now, and they're kind of trying to figure out where is she going with this now. So I want you to kind of sit back in your chair. I want you to relax for a minute and think about this situation. So this is my analogy for helping you to determine what can I do for myself to be better at saying no? So you're the little purple guy with these little flashlights, and you're a burglar. And you've decided that this row of 5 identical houses you're going to rob, but you're only going to rob one of them. So you look at the first house, and this house has on the front door a Yale lock. Okay. You move down the row, in the second house, there is a Yale lock and a Cherb lock on the front door. Okay. You've moved to the third house, and this third house now has a Yale lock, a Cherb lock, and it has bars on all the windows. The fourth house has a Yale lock, a Cherb lock on the front door. It's got bars on the window, plus you can see it's got an alarm system. The final house in that row has got a Yale lock, a Cherb lock, bars on the windows, a burglar alarm, and there's a Rottweiler sitting on the front porch. So, Mr. Robert, which house are you going to try to hit? They're thinking about it? Well, in thinking about it, what you're thinking about is how easily can somebody come up to you and overload you. You've got to have some defenses in place in your mind, in your abilities to be the good worker, be the good person, not make yourself feel guilty. Which one are you going to rob? Well, I'm going to take on the first house, and because that house has very few defenses. The other houses, including the very last house, has got all of those defenses in place that helps them to be able to not worry about having a robber. They've got the defenses. So when we're looking at changing, we need to think about changing others, and you got to change yourself first. So let's read these together and kind of think about them and figure it out. If only he'd listened to me, then I wouldn't be so scared to say no. So you've already put in your mind that guilt. The guilt is back there. The guilt is back there. Okay, she's complaining about your work. What are you going to do so she doesn't complain about your work? Are you going to try to get it done faster? Area that we're talking about, positive no, is going to enable you to say that positive yes and keep your values and your needs and priorities in line. They say so with the positive no, you become a valuable life skill, and we're feeling better about what we do. Empowerment to say no helps your personal, professional. It has nothing to do but up. It cannot move you any farther up the chain. So we want to keep people engaged. We want people to know how far you're going to get by and not destroying others. My secret in saying no without destroying the relationship is that positive no. I can't say directly to somebody, nope, I ain't got time for you. I just am not that way. I will look at them and evaluate my time and help them say, all right, so you're asking me to do this, this, and this. So what are you going to do? So you're turning it back and saying, if they can't give you those same three, this and this and this, that they're going to do, then you're going to say, well, you know, I don't know if I can really help you because you're not taking responsibility for your part of the job. So we want to be sure and be peaceful with, you know, we work in a strange world. I mean, nobody knows any more than I do about what's going to happen tomorrow. So you don't want to break some of these rules of being, because you don't want to feel like people think that you're not a positive worker, that you're not able to work in a group. You just think I'm a loner, because I'm not. I sometimes just have to say no. You know, it's not easy. It's not easy. And I will never tell you that people won't pressure you into saying yes. Because that's what we do. I mean, I'm probably guilty of it because I can make you feel really good about yourself if you'll do this. If I ask you this, then you're going to be able to move forward and you're going to gain more out of your life. Find your positive, and you're going to be respected for it. Somebody out there is going to figure out that you know where your limits are. Because if you get that figured out, I sure hope you'll comment, share, send me an email with how you did it. Because I'm going to struggle with it from the moment I stop. What I have for you to others. Make sure you're not saying no to yourself. Because we have to make that balance. And all of this was saying yes to say no, to say no to say yes. Whichever way you want to flip this coin, it has to be your coin, has to be your output, has to be your responsibility. I can't tell you when is it right to say no, thinking you're saying yes. I can't tell you when you should say yes, when you should have said no. The only person that can do that is you. And if we don't try to bond together on a positive output, we end up coming up with a lot of negativity. So I have been going through this, trying not to rush through it, trying to make sure I give you your full amount of time that you have. I want people to take a minute, and I see all the chats on there, lots of people of names that I'm seeing on there that I know, some I don't know. And I just want to, has anyone got a question now? Anybody have a comment about what was your hardest time, or where has it been hard for you to say no? This is the part that always makes me feel like that, did I do a good presentation? Because, you know, in person, we'd all be chatting this up. There would be lots of people out there saying, I'm right there with you. I cannot say no. And I just want to thank Kaylin and Bobby for thinking about this topic. I don't know if she...
Karen, I have a comment. When I, my
Okay.
when I first started having kids, he kind of, I didn't realize I was saying yes to everything. And one day he was, I guess he knew that about me. And when we started having kids, he said, "You have got to start saying no to some things. We have kids now, we're busier. We need, we have to juggle our time at home in a way." And so it did kind of make me think about it. And I was stretching myself thin and I was stressed out trying to get to every single little thing. And I wanted to be involved in everything. And it's probably a little FOMO. I was afraid of missing out. And so when he said that, he wasn't being mean, he was being honest. And it did make me realize I was saying yes to so many things. And one thing that helped me is I started to think about, what am I really passionate about? And I will be sure to say yes to those things. But then some other things, I just had to let go. And when I wasn't sad about it, in retrospect, I knew I'd made the right decision. I wasn't passionate about it. I could say no. I guess I could share my video. Sorry. That way people can see me. Here I am.
Okay. You're talking and I can see you.
Yes, here I am. And we do have some comments here. Thanks for the tip on keeping a still body. Yeah, that is a great tip. It helps so much if a person's supervisor is supportive in telling others no. That is so true.
That's
Great
true.
point.
I mean, we got to have that. We've got to have that joint effort. And if your supervisor thinks you should be saying yes to everything, then maybe we need to back up and talk to the supervisor about, well, where are the limits? We can't do everything.
Right. Right. And from Brittany, not a question, but I just want to say thank you. This was wonderful. I feel it has been harder to say no during these remote times. I feel like we never really log off now. Yes, I agree with that. I do agree with that. And I don't know, Brittany, if you'd agree with me, but I think sometimes too, when normally it would have just been a phone call in the normal days, now everyone wants to do a Zoom. And you're like, well, can't we just do a regular phone call like we would have? Do we have to do a Zoom and have the link and set it all up? And then I have to put makeup on. Can't we just talk on?
I have to fix my hair.
Exactly. And then Shelly says, I really struggle with saying no in both home and work life, and it really stretches me thin at times. And yeah, it does. You get stressed out really easily.
And because with this presentation, you're going to find you're not the only one who does that.
Right.
So don't think you're alone out there being stretched thin.
No, not at all. Linda says, I have learned to say no when others are trying to push their busy work off on me because they just don't want to do it. I still feel some guilt, but I am learning. Yeah, and why do we feel guilty? We shouldn't, Linda. That's a good point. We do feel guilty when we say no, and we shouldn't. And Karen, with that, and I think it would help Linda, is the confidence factor. I love that you brought that up when saying no. You have to be confident in saying no. And so it's a mindset. Change your mindset. It's okay to say no and be confident in your answer. Absolutely agree, Brittany says. And Fran, since I tend to find motivation after getting more involved, sometimes I wonder if I really know what I feel passionate about until I get in the water. How should I figure what I should or should not get involved in? Oh gosh.
Okay, so from taking that question, I'm a list maker. So my first thing I would have to do for this question would be, I would have to make myself a list of 5 things that I have been asked to get involved with. Of those 5 things, then you're going to list out some pros and cons. And you've already got things that people are involved in. So you know that they're going to have additional pieces to that puzzle. So what I would have to do is, from my list, pick out 3 to start with. See if I can balance 3 of them and be involved completely with them. Don't get involved with 5 things and only do them halfway. So take your time and pick out 3, even if you want to back it up and pick out 2. If you still are asked to be involved in the others, you can say, well, I'm really putting all my energy and effort into this project at this time. If I feel that it's not working out for me, I'll get back to you.
And Fran,
Does that help? I hope that helps her out.
And Fran, I don't know if you remember the diagram that Erica shared with us yesterday about your 3 circles, what you're passionate about. Maybe if you um, do that diagram, maybe that will kind of help you what falls in those circles about what you're passionate about. But you're right, maybe getting involved in something to find out if you're passionate about it necessarily isn't a bad thing, but then not being afraid to back out of it when you realize it's not something that you are passionate about. And Karen, we did have another comment about someone, it was in a separate chat, that she was asked to do something she didn't feel comfortable with. And so then when she went to her supervisor to ask for advice, the supervisor helped her figure out what she shouldn't do. And that helped her. She needed that to feel confident to say no. And I couldn't agree more. If you've got a great supportive supervisor, go to them and ask them for help and advice, or even someone you can turn to, a confidant, a mentor. Yeah, and you're right, having someone else, the safety in numbers, having someone else say they would say no to that as well. It does make you feel better. Again, it's a confidence thing. Oh, and Fran said,
and we all do what now?
Fran said, good advice. Thanks. Love it.
Wonderful. I get to working through some of this stuff, and when I told my husband that I was doing this presentation, he laughed at me because he knows me. He knows that I can't say no. And I told him, I said, that's why I'm doing this presentation. And the reason I'm doing this presentation is probably not so much for everybody else, for me to research this, try to find myself some way to say no. And so I want to, continue to work at it. I don't think that this one day and talking about this for 45 minutes here is going to solve all of our problems of stretching us this thin. But if we continually to work harder at saying no, when we say it correctly and we say it with the positive side of the no, then we know that we're going to be a better employee, we're going to be a better coworker, and we're even going to be a better friend in life, because we have to take care of us. This has been fun for me. I will tell you, this is my first Zoom meeting. I've been lucky enough to be here. My job in the agricultural department, of course, gets me outside a lot, so I've not had to have a lot of these Zoom meetings. So this was my first attempt, and I hope everybody has enjoyed it, and that at least I didn't screw completely up through the whole presentation. And I'm going to forward all of this to Kaylin, and I think that this is being recorded, so it will be available. But Kaylin will address that here in a little bit, I think, is how we can get to all of that. So I don't see any other new questions. Kaylin, do you have any other new questions that you see?
Oh, Fran said, glad you didn't say no to doing the presentation.
Really? There's times that when you say yes, you should have said no because you didn't know how it was going to look being this Zoom meeting. But I'm very, very pleased that I did it because it helps me to broaden my scale of way I can present things.
Yes, no, I agree. Yeah, so with that, thank you so much, Karen. We really appreciate it. If anyone has any last minute questions or comments, please feel free to type in. But while we're waiting, I do want to say thanks so much to Karen. We really appreciate it, and we are glad you didn't say no. And she was right. She hardly ever says no to me, so I'm lucky to have that. She's a great person to lean on, and I know I can always turn to her for advice, questions, because she's been an MCCA member for a while. She's served on the board. So it's great to have you, Karen. Thank you very much. We will take a quick little 10 to 15 minute break before we get started with Brian. I just texted him and asked him to log on a little early so we can get going a little bit early. So let's plan to reconvene at 11. We'll give him some time to log on, and we'll start sometime around the 11 o'clock hour. So if everyone wants to take a quick break, Go get some coffee. And it's cloudy, a wet, cloudy day here, so I'm probably going to go fill up my coffee cup. Run to the restroom, answer some emails, and we will start back up around 11. I will try to share my screen here in a little bit. I have a funny little meme, and it's different pictures of Ross Geller from Friends. I am a huge Friends fanatic, and so to him if he's ready to go. Thank you all for sharing which Ross you are. I don't know if you saw that, Brian, to be able to share with us which Ross you are during COVID.
Oh,
Oh, you didn't see it. I'll have to send it to you via text, and you can share with us later which Ross you are.
all right.
But we had some great conversations about which Ross we are during COVID and during quarantine. So without further ado, I will go ahead. Let me get to my script real quick. We will go ahead and introduce Brian Millner. He is the president and CEO of MCCA, as you guys already know. And he's going to talk with us today about having difficult conversations, and he's going to give a legislative update. As you can probably imagine, he has a couple difficult conversations, probably with legislators. So he is a perfect candidate for this conversation. And hopefully he doesn't have to have any difficult conversations with me anytime soon. So I will go ahead and hand it over to Brian.
Cool. Thanks, Kaylin. I appreciate it. Hope everybody's doing well. And I'm really glad that you all are with us today. And hopefully we're on Tuesday as well. I guess, first of all, Kaylin, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Okay, perfect. I am new to the world of AirPods, and I have my AirPods in. So Kaylin, what's on everybody's screen? Can they see me right now as well? And then when I share my screen, they'll see that? Is that
correct?
The story?
So
okay.
They see now. And then if you have difficulty sharing screen, Bobby will just have to give you permission. And then he can do that easily, and then we can move on.
Okay, perfect. Well, no, we should be fine. I'll go ahead and start with a quick legislative update. I was going to give you all an update first on a couple of things at the state level, and then also kind of what's happening at the federal level, which is maybe more interesting and exciting right now than anything. So, and then I'll save some time for questions, and then we'll move into So with all that being said, let's go ahead and talk real quickly about what's happening at the state level. So as you know, as you probably know, the legislature is in session normally from January through May. That's their regular session. And that's the time when they work on a budget. So each year, sometime between January and May, they work on and complete the budget for the next fiscal year, which begins on July 1st. So we just started FY21. And the legislature began working on that budget in January of 2020 before COVID hit. And in 2019, the budget that the legislature put together included increases for the public universities as well as K-12, but did not include any increases for the community colleges. And all the while, the governor kept talking about the importance of workforce development and infrastructure. And we talked about that's what we're here to do. That's what we do. And, we can't do it to the level that the governor wants without, additional funding. And so we made a real push last fall to have some additional funds included in the legislature's budget this year. And so when they got to working on the FY21 budget, they had increased funding or planned to increase funding for the community colleges. And the House, so the House of Representatives starts with the budget. They had increased our funding about $5 million, which is about 3%. That's more of an increase than we've seen in the last handful of years for sure. And the Senate was point that we'd have some really good news coming out of the state. Unfortunately, as you all know, COVID hit. The legislature actually shut down session for a while, and then when they went back, state revenue projections were in a very different spot than they were in February. And so in late April, when the legislature got to working on the budget for FY21, what they ended up doing was keeping our funding level flat. And so our funding for FY21 from the legislature is going to look like it did in FY20, which is also what it looked like in FY19. So we have not seen an increase now here in a few years. That would be sort of best case scenario, because on April 1st, the governor announced that he was withholding or restricting 1/12 of our state funding. So for anybody who's not familiar with the intricate details, and you don't need to be, and I wouldn't expect that you are necessarily, every year we get a certain amount of funding from the state. It is divided into 12 equal payments, which are made on the 1st of each month. And so on April 1st, the governor announced that he was withholding 1/12 of our funding. So that turns out to be about 8%, a little over 8%. Then on June 1st, as we started the last month of the fiscal year, the governor announced that he was going to be withholding about another 5% of our funding. So not quite a full 1/12, but about 2/3 of it. And so all told, we were somewhere for FY20 reduced to about, reduced by about 13% of our funding. Again, that would be sort of best case scenario, because again, on July 1st or June 30th, somewhere in that range, as we were starting the FY21 fiscal year on July 1, the governor announced that for FY21, he would be withholding or restricting the same amount of funds as he did in FY20. So it's about a 13% cut to our funding. This is, it's really unfortunate for a number of reasons. One, we're already underfunded. We receive, I think most of you have heard me say this if you've heard me speak before. And yeah, okay, Lynn, thank you. That's a great point. Yeah, type any questions. I can see them coming up, so I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. You've probably heard me talk about this before. We serve about 40% of the undergraduate students in the state of Missouri, and we receive 15% of higher education funding. Again, not having received an increase between FY19 and FY20, we were already at a disadvantage, where the universities did receive an increase. And so the cut that they took came from an increased amount, whereas our cut came from a flat amount. So the impact was even greater. And then when you add in the fact that in February, I don't want to count our chickens before the eggs hatch, but I think that we were, like I said, I think we were poised for about a 10% increase, and we ended up with a 13% decrease. And so that is a huge swing for our funding. So, that's kind of where things stand on the state funding level. Fortunately, through the CARES Act, the feds have been able to funnel some money to the universities and community colleges. The governor had a pot of money, about $58 million, that he was able to divvy up for education. And so a lot of our colleges are getting a portion of that money back, although there are some restrictions. And so it's not quite one for one for anybody, but we are getting a little bit of that money back. So that's maybe, the silver lining on a very gray and dark cloud. For FY21, it's yet to see, what will happen. The governor announced this 13% restriction. It's possible. It's looking less and less likely by the day, but it's possible that if the impact of COVID somehow comes to an end pretty abruptly and things sort of get back on track financially for state revenues, that that number could be less. It's also possible that the feds could put some more money into a relief package that they are currently considering, which might provide some relief to the community colleges and universities as well. So there's a lot out there, but I think we're sort of remaining very cautiously optimistic that it will be any better than the projection that we have right now, which is a 13% cut for FY21. So, I'm disappointed, but that is the reality of the situation. As far as actual legislation, the legislature really did very little in the session with respect to passing new laws. Some would say that's for the best. and they did even less on really nothing where community colleges or higher education is concerned. So for better or worse, I'm usually giving an update on guns on campus or A+ expansion efforts that might weaken the A+ scholarship, or in the last year or two, we've been talking a lot about Title IX regulations and how the state wants to create further regulations for Title IX that are burdensome and really would be pretty detrimental for victims of sexual assault on campuses. So the legislature didn't have a chance to work on any of those bills, which, again, I think is probably for the best for us. Yeah, Brandy, you make a very good point. So let me talk. She said, for anybody who didn't see it, Bright Flight scholarships were cut in half. They were cut by $1,200. So students receiving Bright Flight were expecting to receive about $3,000. They'll receive $1,800. And we're watching very closely the numbers for A+. And the conversations that we've had with the department within the last week or so have led us to believe that they are going to fully fund A+ for the fall semester, and they're going to consider reductions in the spring semester if the funding doesn't look to be enough to get them through the full year. So the department asked for an additional about $4.8, maybe $5 million from the legislature, and they didn't get that money. So A+ funding is also flat, which means that if you have an increase in people who are using A+ and the amount of money in the pot stays the same, inevitably everyone gets a little bit less. And that's what happened to Bright Flight. They actually took a cut. And so you have maybe more people using Bright Flight, right? So Bright Flight is for folks who have high test scores who are staying in the state. And given the circumstances, you may have that now. A student who might have gone to a university out of state might decide to stay in state and go to a community college or go to a university that's close by to home or that's a little less expensive. And so the impact is certainly being felt on our scholarship programs. I remain hopeful that maybe because of our declines in enrollment or because of additional Pell funding, that A+ won't be impacted the way Bright Flight has been impacted, but that won't be seen until probably January, unfortunately. So that's something that we're watching. And Brandy, I appreciate you bringing that up. It was very sad news when that happened, and I feel very bad for students who were expecting a certain amount of money and are now going to be getting, about 40 or 50% less. So at the federal level, there are a couple things that are happening. So I mentioned through the CARES Act, we did get some money from the feds that will help with both reopening efforts and covering some of the costs for going online and some of the other things that COVID has sort of forced us to do. Congress is now debating the HEROES Act, which does have some additional funding for higher education institutions. And then in addition to that, there is going to be a number of opportunities. We're currently exploring two federal grant opportunities. Very similar for anybody who has submitted a taxed grant. We focused on healthcare, we focused on STEM, we focused on manufacturing, and it looks like we're going to have an opportunity strengthening community colleges grant, which is new funding for students who we're trying to get into healthcare. Think about folks who were displaced. Maybe they were working in a hotel, they were working in a restaurant or a bar, and they've lost their job and are looking for an opportunity to get into a different line of work, something where there's a little more demand right now. And the feds are pumping a lot of money into creating those opportunities for students. So we I'm not sure how to handicap this first grant that we're doing with the state, but I will tell you that after 3 successful applications for tax grants and our current $12 million grant for apprenticeships, which we were awarded a year ago, I feel very good that we should have a shot at the Strengthening Community Colleges grant, if for no other reason than our track record sort of speaks for itself, and we certainly have the need in Missouri. And there are a lot of hospitals and healthcare facilities who are screaming from the rooftops that they need more nurses, they need more CNAs, they need more techs. And so, we're here to help. Let me stop there for just a second and see if there are any questions. I don't know if, Kaylin, if you've gotten any individually, or if anybody wants to type any in, I'm certainly happy to answer them.
I don't see any new questions. Let me check nope. I don't see any as of now.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. Well, I'd say that's sort of it for the legislative update. I guess a couple things. One, let me talk about a couple of other things. First and foremost, the legislature is in a special session right now. They are working on crime prevention bills, and this is an issue that's gotten a little bit controversial. I'm not sure that it needs to be as controversial as it's gotten. Sorry, give me 1 second. I need to silence my watch here. I'm not sure that it needs to be as controversial as it's gotten, but it certainly has become controversial. The governor has really shifted his election strategy toward a crime prevention, law and order strategy. It kind of follows what the president is doing and echoes some of the president's campaign talking points. And so the governor has called the legislature back into session to begin to work on some of these issues in the Capitol. There was a small outbreak of coronavirus in the Capitol. We had about 7 or 8 House staff members who contracted the virus. So they're doing extensive testing on legislators. There were a lot of legislators who were very frustrated with having to go back into the Capitol, and many on sort of both sides of the aisle who believe that we should be wholly focused on our coronavirus response, as well as the economy, jobs, and safely reopening schools and restaurants and shops and things like that, as opposed to this topic, which I think many believe is sort of politically motivated. And I want to say that without sounding too biased myself. So that's sort of one piece. There's a good likelihood that the legislature will go back in for another special session, maybe in a couple of months. And one of the things on the docket when they go back in for the second special session is a discussion over liability. And this is an issue we're watching very closely, because if our community colleges are opening and or forced to reopen, there is some concern among administrators that should something horrific happen on one of our campuses, that potentially we could be liable to a lawsuit. There is not a lot of guidance on what that reopening should look like from the state level. It really has been dependent upon what the local health agencies are suggesting and their guidance. And so various industries, education, and other organizations are all pushing for some measure of protection against liability for reopening. This is another one. It's unfortunate that we're even having to have this conversation. It's unfortunate that this is a likely scenario, unfortunately. And certainly if the legislature acts, if they do something to protect private businesses or industry, that they'll also, will be pushing that they also do something to protect public education as well. Beyond that, I guess I would remind everybody that there is an election next week on Tuesday, and we will have an opportunity to consider Medicaid expansion. And this is going to be the only piece of this conversation where I sort of get political. And I would just tell you that there's been a lot of misinformation about Medicaid expansion would mean for our state. From the research that I have done, the benefits of expanding Medicaid have overwhelmingly surpassed any of the negatives that you're hearing about. For community colleges, a lot of the folks who would be served by expanding Medicaid. So we're talking about people who are just outside the federal poverty level, who are not able to currently receive Medicaid benefits, but who would under this expansion. A lot of those folks are employed but underemployed. They are single parents. They are, young people and young families just struggling to get by. This is the same group of people that we all go to work every day to help and to support at our community colleges. And for me, supporting Medicaid expansion has been a no-brainer. We have not publicly as an association done anything, but in all of these conversations that I have had, I have tried to provide this perspective. I'm certainly not here to sway you in how you vote. That's not my job. I won't do that. But given the landscape and sort of where things are, it is very easy to get caught up in misinformation and miscommunication. And so, the big point that I want to make is that I think expanding Medicaid has proven to be beneficial for states that are of similar size and sort of financial similarities to Missouri. And the people who are going to benefit are the same people that we're working to serve every day in our community colleges. And for that reason, I will be very supportive, have been very supportive of Medicaid expansion, and remain hopeful that it will pass. If for no other reason, then I think it'll have a positive impact on our students, and I think it will have a positive impact on the state. I'll get off my soapbox there, and again, happy to answer any questions. Brandy, I appreciate you typing in your bit about Bright Flight. If there's anything else anybody else has or you think of in the next few minutes, feel free to type it in, and I can either circle back to it or take a break and address it right there. If not, Bobby, I think I will move into my presentation. Let me see if I can share my screen. Share that.
It's working.
Oh, it is. Good. Okay. Now let me see if I remember how to start a presentation.
You see the play button on the little thing. I think that's what you hit up at the, you just rolled over it.
Where is it, Kaylin? Left side or right side? Sorry. Oh, right here. Yeah. Yeah. Here we go. Okay, perfect. Is that working, Kaylin?
Yes, and I
Okay.
love the graphics.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm known for my graphics. All right, and my chat box has gone away. So Kaylin, if there are any questions, will you just let me know if they pop up?
Yes, I'm monitoring it.
Okay. All right, so we're going to how to build a coworker, which I was hoping would be helpful. It's also very weird to be having a presentation like this where you don't get any feedback from the audience because, I really thought that would get a lot of laughter, and then sure enough, oh, there you go, Kaylin. Thank you for typing in a laugh. I appreciate that. Tips for having difficult conversations, or how to not strangle a coworker. And I know that the folks on this webinar vary in positions, and so I know some of you may be supervisors, some of you may not be. Thanks, Wanda. I appreciate that. So I tried to, and we'll have this conversation and frame it for folks who are supervisors and those of you who are not, but who just have any number of coworkers that you may need to have a difficult conversation with, sort of about office interactions or meeting deadlines or whatever the case may be. If you have any examples or thoughts as we're sort of going through these, I would love for you to type them in, and we can address them kind of as we progress. So feel free to, I'd like this to be as interactive as possible because all I can hear is myself standing in my room in my house talking to myself, which is not all that favorable. So let's see. There we go. Okay. We'll start off with it. I'm just assuming everybody's laughing at this because I thought it was pretty funny, but it says, sorry if I annoyed you by making you do your job, which we've all been in those situations before in our offices where, there's just, you're either on one side or the other of it, right? Either you know somebody in the office who isn't doing their work and you feel like having to say something to them is, just going to annoy them or whatever. So I thought that one was pretty funny. And yeah, office memes are the best. All right, tip number 1, be clear about the issue. So expanding on that a little bit, right? The tip here is to know what the behavior is that is causing the problem and how it's impacting you, the team, or the organization. So again, if you have any, examples or things you want me to elaborate on, I'd be happy to. Yeah, there you go, Kaylin. Friends and The Office, we're doing good. I'll see if I can get a Parks and Recreation one in here before the end of it. There may be things that annoy you in the office, and I think the purpose of this tip, this very first tip, is to sort of have some self-reflection about the issue, right? To clarify what it is that's happening that is problematic or bothersome, and recognizing its impact and ensuring that there is legitimate impact, right, before you sort of move forward. And so I think, this is, maybe we should have a stop sign here or something like that. But, I think the purpose of this is to say, okay, let's be clear about what it is that we're talking about. It's not just that we don't like somebody. It's not just that they annoyed us a couple of years ago one time. They didn't sign the office birthday card, whatever the case may be, right? We want to make sure that there's an actual issue and that we're clear about what that issue is. Tip number 2, know your objective, right? So we're moving into having a difficult conversation. You've sort of decided, okay, here's what the issue is. It needs to be addressed. We're going to have this difficult conversation. Ask yourself, what is the desired outcome of the conversation, right? It's certainly not to just create an enemy, right? We want to accomplish something. So in that conversation, I think we need to think about, what do we both agree to do and what obstacles stand in the way, right? So well, let's see, we got a couple of chats coming in. Oh, thanks, Wanda. If it's that, and Wanda, I'm just going to use you since you just chatted. So Wanda and I are coworkers, right? And Wanda is, late for work every day, right? And it's meaning that, we can't get started on our projects that we need to be doing together because she's late for work every single day. And it's really starting to be a problem. So I've decided, okay, we need to have a conversation about why Wanda's late to work every day. And if in that conversation, I expect that she's going to agree to be on time every day, but we know that she's supposed to be at work at 8 o'clock and she can't drop her kids off until 8 o'clock or 8:15, we've got an issue, we've got an obstacle, right? Something that's going to stand in the way of our success. And we have to be very clear and intentional about what those obstacles are as well. So this is more kind of big picture thinking as well, but tip number 2 is about knowing your objective, right? Following sort of this path, which is, okay, what is the outcome we want? What stands in our way? And then let's make a plan to follow up, right? So if I say to Wanda, hey, Wanda, you're late every day, and it's really impacting our team and our ability to be successful. And why? Here's why, right? Okay, so let's make an adjustment and then let's schedule a follow-up. Okay. So I love this quote that I found while I was researching this topic. So an English professor, Theodore Zeldin, said, a successful conversation doesn't just reshuffle the cards, it creates new cards, right? So at the end of that conversation, the expectation cannot be, well, I think that Wanda should show up on time, and that's just the end of the story, right? So in my cards, I show up on time and Wanda shows up on time. Well, we need to create some new cards, right? What does on time mean? Is it really impactful if we make an adjustment and maybe I do something else until Wanda can get there and get settled and be on the same page to work on that project with me, right? So reshuffling the deck as opposed to just creating new cards as opposed to just reshuffling the deck. This one I think is really important, right? Adopt a mindset of inquiry. So your mindset will predetermine your reaction to the other person's responses, right? So and I've already decided I'm so frustrated and annoyed with my coworker here And I go into this conversation with a predetermined mindset that the only way to make this situation better is for Wanda to be on time and me to be happy that she's on time, we're going to start off in a really bad spot, right? I have to take a mindset of inquiry and be willing, right, to ask Wanda, what's your story, right? We're coworkers. A lot of times we know a lot about each other. Sometimes we know very little about each other. It's very rare that we know the whole story or we get the whole picture, right? So we owe it to the other person to let them tell their story. And I would say that the outcome of adopting this mindset might really surprise you, right? I might find out, Wanda's spouse has to go to work super early and she has to do all the childcare responsibilities in the morning. Or I might find out Wanda has a sick parent and she has to go take care of that parent in the morning. And there's just no way that 8 o'clock is reasonable for her to be sitting at her desk ready to go on this project. And we are all, especially now, right? And I'm going to talk about this from my own perspective in just a minute. We are all dealing with a lot more than we probably intended on dealing with in 2020. And the willingness to adopt a mindset of inquiry, to ask our coworkers, to tell their story before we embark in this difficult conversation is really important. It's really crucial. Okay. When you find yourself in these conversations, I think, and it's kind of old school, there used to be an expectation that you'd leave your emotions at home, right? That you'd come to work and you'd just stay focused, nose to the grindstone, get your work done, and then you'd go home. And I think for a lot of reasons, that expectation has changed, right? So tip number 4 is about managing the emotions. There will be emotions. If you have difficult conversations, whether it is embarrassment or it's remorse or it's frustration, or whatever the case may be, there will be different emotions wrapped up in those conversations. And it is your job, either as a supervisor, right, or the person who requested this conversation or approached their coworker about an issue, to manage those emotions. They cannot be one-sided, where you're berating someone and they're expected to just take it. And frankly, like, you may have your own emotions, right? Maybe the situation is impacting you for one reason or another, and it is, you might cry. It's okay to cry at work. It used to be a real no-no, and it's happened in our office. We've had to have difficult manage those emotions, right? And acknowledge your coworker's emotions in order to help the conversation flow. If somebody starts crying, refusing to acknowledge it, or thinking, they might be embarrassed, so I'm not going to say anything, right? That's proving to be the wrong way, right? You get them a Kleenex, you hand them a Kleenex, you show some empathy. That will inevitably allow everybody to bring their walls down and continue to move the conversation forward in a productive manner. I added on here, work can be stressful, right? And our home lives can certainly be stressful. And we carry all of that with us, right? It's important to compartmentalize to some degree, but you're going to bring all of that, let's call it baggage for lack of a better word, but you're going to bring all those emotions with you to work. It's just not possible to completely shut it out, right? And I would almost argue that it's probably not healthy to just completely shut it out. But you're going to have some emotions. We have to manage them in part of these difficult conversations. Okay, tip number 5, be comfortable with silence. Introverts take a lot of time often to think before they speak. Extroverts, I got a chat, hang on. Oh, Caitlin, yeah, thank you. Caitlin's like my sidekick. This is great. I need her to go with me everywhere, so when I make a funny, then she can acknowledge it. So I'm an extrovert. I sort of expect that people are just going to keep talking, and that good things come from talking, and that if we just continue to bounce ideas back and forth, that we're going to come to a solution. Not everybody is like me, and introverts often need to think through things. Sometimes that's taking a short few seconds to take a deep breath and think through an answer. Sometimes it's, hey, this is a lot. I need to go home and process this, and let's finish this conversation tomorrow. And so tip number 5 is very straightforward. Be comfortable with silence, right? Recognize that just like emotions, silence may be part of a conversation, right? And you may be talking to someone who needs to really internalize what it is that you're saying and to think through their own emotions, to process all of it. And it's not necessarily going to just be, it's great. Actually, I kind of love that we have been using sitcom memes, right? Because sitcoms are so structured. And whether it's a funny back and forth or it's a serious back and forth, sitcoms are very much like person A says this, person B responds quickly with a retort, person A, person B, person A, and the conversation flows. But we all know that real conversations don't flow like that, right? And that's just, again, silence is going to be a part of those conversations. If you are someone who is not used to the silence, learning to be comfortable with silence is really important. Tip number 6, and I would say, above all, I don't know. I put this as number 6, but only because it sort of flowed through a process. But this is almost, to me, if not the most important, it's got to be one of the couple most important, right? And that is preserving the relationship. It takes years to build bridges with coworkers, right? And you form relationships and bonds. You lean on each other for getting work done, or sometimes personal favors. Shoot, my car has a flat tire. I need your help, or whatever the case may be. I don't know if Bobby is on here. I think Bobby's on the webinar, right? Bobby and I live really close to each other, and on more than one occasion, Bobby has come over and fed our cat. We've been on vacation, right? So just as an example, if I have a real conversation with Bobby and there's irreparable damage, I don't know who's going to feed my cat when I go on vacation. I say that in, yes, perfect. I say that in jest, but really, I think the takeaway here is it does take such a long time to build a bridge with a coworker, and it's important to think about how the conversation can fix the situation, right? But without causing irreparable damage between the two people who are having this conversation, right? And so a lot of that is about how we approach the conversation, about the message that we send, about the way we frame it, about our desired objectives. Like all of those things sort of play into preserving the relationship. And inevitably, there are going to be difficult conversations. And admittedly, we have them at MCCA sometimes where we may have a president or a chancellor or a chief academic officer who's frustrated with something we did, and then I have to sit down with the person on my staff or the team who's working on it, whatever the topic is, and say, hey, here's the feedback I'm getting, and here's how I think we can improve it. What are your thoughts? Let's develop a plan. But I'm never going to just go in and berate them, tell them how terrible they are. I can't stand working with you. You've embarrassed me, those sort of things, right? Because those are the things that will build a wall between, me and my coworkers, right? They'll say, well, pardon my language, they'll say, screw this guy, right? Like, I don't need to be treated like this. I don't want to be treated. And so that's never going to fix the situation. It's only going to probably exacerbate it, if not create a new problem for us to deal with, right? So managing and preserving the relationship that you have is really important, right? And most of the time, the issues that we're talking about here, the difficult conversations that we're having, they are a blip on a radar, whereas the map, the radar screen, is the big picture, right? And we can't let the blip on the radar completely destroy what we've been working to build. Oh, thanks, Wanda. All right, tip number 7, be consistent. And this is probably more for supervisors. So, not that I would tell you, not to listen if you're not a supervisor, but one of the biggest mistakes probably issued by and having to have an inability to be objective, right? Treating certain employees different than other employees. And so the additional points on here, ensure that your objective is fair and that you're using a consistent approach. So if you've got two people who are always late to work, but one is somebody that you go have a drink with after work or hang out with on the weekends, and you send them a text and say, hey, let's I'd like you to fix this issue of being late to work. And the other one you formally write up and let's say have some further punishment, whatever that sort of mark on their record might be. That's going to get back. It's going to get around the office, right? And nothing erodes a relationship faster than perceived inequality. So knowingly treating one employee different for the same issue as another employee is detrimental to your leadership and sort of the respect that you hope to earn as a leader. And employees will remember it. Employees have long-term memories of how you handled situations in the past. And so it may not even be that the same things happen at the same time, right? But it could be you've got these two employees 6 months apart that you're dealing with situations. And if you handle them very differently, it will be remembered. Tip number 8, consider your reaction to thwarting ploys. So thwarting ploys is anything like sarcasm, stonewalling, taking offense, and those will happen, right? So again, you go back to the sitcom example. Sitcoms are in terms of the way that they deal with situations, right? You are inevitably going to have, I hope, right, that using all these tips that you're able to sit down with an employee or a coworker or whoever the person might be and have this difficult conversation, and you clearly, bring forward your concern and you lay out objectively, the issues, and you're willing to make some sacrifices as well and change your behavior and be supportive, and you have a productive conversation. Ideally, all of your conversations are going to go that way, but inevitably they're not all going to go that way. And you might sit down with someone who is sarcastic in their response or unwilling to take responsibility, or they are taking offense to everything you say, or they're just stonewalling, they're just deflecting or putting up barriers and you can't get through. It is important to address those openly and sincerely, right? The worst thing that you can do is respond to sarcasm with sarcasm, to respond to taking offense with more blaming. So, saying something like, I don't know how to interpret your silence. I recognize your frustration, right? But here's what I'm trying to tell you. Sarcasm is a really tough one, right? If somebody is just totally unwilling to be serious, that you may have a bigger issue there. But I think the tip still holds true in you have to be sincere in how you address these. And it's important, especially, again, this is more for supervisors, but it is especially important if you are in a leadership role that you maintain sincerity and professionalism, in the face of ridiculousness. And that's really what these thwarting employees are, I would say, is an employee or a coworker having a ridiculous and unnecessary response to a legitimate issue or concern that you're trying to bring up. Tip number 9, and we are almost finished. So, and if you have any, be happy to take any questions at the end, but if anything pops up while we're chatting about this, feel free to interrupt me. But tip number 9 is choose the right place to have the conversation. This is really important. And I did my master's in public administration and really focused heavily on organizational dynamics and leadership. And this is a lesson that I learned early on, and it's one that has stuck with me and that I'm very grateful for having understood and recognized and sort of conquered early in my career, which is calling someone into your office, your space, your turf, totally changes the dynamic of a conversation, right? And especially, again, for a supervisor, if I call in, one of my coworkers, an employee, into my office, and ask them to close the door, which is, again, what, sort of always happens in the movies or on TV or whatever. I say, come on in, close the door. Automatically, I have the upper hand, right? I'm already seated at my desk, behind my desk, most likely, away from them. I dictate where they're going to sit. I told them to close the door, right? It's my space. It's my books. It's my bookshelves. It's pictures of my family. automatically it changes the dynamic of the conversation. And I think it's really important. I mean, a lot of times, and I think Bobby and Kaylin can attest to this, like if I go into their office, if I need to talk to them about most anything, right, I usually walk to their office. I think it's a sign of respect. It allows me to clearly communicate directly to them. I'm not commanding them or requesting them or anything like that. And I'm really intentional about that. And it's more important, I think, when you are going to have a difficult conversation, right? And so a neutral place to have these kind of conversations can make them go so much better. Hey, Wanda, can we go chat in the conference room for a minute? Or, hey, Bobby, I'd love to chat with you about something that's been on my mind. Can we meet for coffee before work tomorrow, right? And I put that here in this slide. Coffee shops work too. A place where you can eliminate or remove a power dynamic is really important. And I've mentioned this and I've sort of harped on it for supervisors. I think this is true for anybody, right? So if you have an issue that you need to discuss with a coworker, you may even just want to walk outside. Hey, can we take a quick walk around the block or whatever? Yeah, Bobby, yeah, once COVID is over, that's a good point. Maybe an outdoor coffee shop or something. Taking a walk around the block, something like that, just to remove the power dynamic of calling someone into your office. All right. Tip number 10, know how to begin. This is crucial in all kinds of conversations. It is extremely important in a difficult conversation with a coworker. You likely only get one shot at this, right? And the wrong approach, the wrong beginning, may have the other person completely shut down. It may have them on the sort of the defense from the beginning. So knowing how to begin is really important. Being upfront is the authentic and respectful approach, right? So not hiding what you really want. Making sure your tone of voice signals discussion and not an inquisition. Again, we have an issue, right? I may think that you're 100% at fault. You may think that I'm 100% at fault, and we're only going to find that out if we have an open dialogue and a discussion. So going into these conversations with an open mind, with a desire to have a discussion rather than a punishment or inquisition or whatever the case may be, again, helps those conversations go so much better. And I've included some examples here. So saying something like, John, I would like to talk with you about what happened at the meeting this morning when Bob asked about the missed deadline. Can we grab a cup of coffee tomorrow morning to chat, right? Or Linda, I want to go over some of the issues with a certain customer and some concerns that I have. Let's meet tomorrow morning to problem solve, right? So already here we've said problem solve, we've said chat, right? Those are two-way conversations between coworkers that can lead to a positive outcome, right? It is not, apparently at this meeting, right, John and Bob had some disagreement about a deadline. So Bob probably already feels either embarrassed or ashamed, or maybe he is defensive about the situation, whatever happened in the meeting between John and Bob. So if you approach this by saying, hey, I also, unfortunately, I need to talk to you about that outburst you had at the meeting or whatever the case may be, right? Bob's already going to be defensive, right? He's already going to know, oh, well, I'm in trouble. This isn't going to go well. And so he's going to come in to the conversation closed up. And again, you pile some of these things on top of each other. You call Bob into your office to talk to him about his missing a deadline and John already calling him out. I mean, I think you're setting yourself up for failure with a conversation. So it's really important to know how to begin to, from the get-go, show that you are genuinely interested in a conversation that leads to a productive outcome, as opposed to trying to blame or have an inquisition or, punish somebody right off the bat. Sorry, give me 1 second here. Okay. Tip number 11. Training is important. And I believe this to be true with a lot of the topics that we talk about. you know, and I know that both Michelle and Erica, if you were on Tuesday, you know, their topics fit right into this. If you're a supervisor or a supervisory, apparently put, if you're a supervisory, you should train other leaders in best practices for these types of conversations. So, you know, we do a really good job often in training people how to do their job, right? We do much less work on providing training for these kind of very specific situations, or inter-office or interpersonal, you know, communication, things like that. They are, you know, equally as important, if not more important. And if you're, you know, needing to have a difficult conversation and you just don't know how, and, you know, my 20-minute slide presentation here has not given you enough, you should go in and you should ask a supervisor for guidance or training. You should talk to, you know, potentially, you know, if you have another coworker that you trust who's not part of this conversation, you know, it might be worth asking for some objective perspective, right? So I'm not talking about going to your best friend in the office and complaining about, you know, Bob missing his deadline. Rather, I'm talking about going to somebody that you trust, who is, you know, familiar with the personalities and the job responsibilities and things like that, and being able to say, hey, you know, I think I need to talk to Bob about missing his deadline. You know, here are some examples of what's happened. Do you think I'm on track, or, you know, am I? So don't feel like you have to figure this out on your own. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Right? If you're a supervisor, you should be training other leaders in best practices for having difficult conversations and engaging with coworkers. And if you are a person who is needing to have one of these conversations, don't be afraid to ask for help, because avoiding the conversation or going into it without being prepared are two ways to almost certainly guarantee failure. All right, and this is our last one, our last meme for the day. I don't think of you as a coworker because you never do any work. And I thought that one was just pretty funny. That's all I have. The next slide is ask for questions, but this is funnier, so I'm just gonna leave it on that one. Oh, thanks, Susan. Thanks, Kaylin. Here we go. Can I answer any questions?
Yes, please. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box, or we'll just have to sit here comfortably in silence.
Yes, be comfortable with the silence.
That is a good tip, though, because I do feel like most people feel like they have to fill the air. Oh, Bobby's urging me to share my video because I forget. Thanks, Bobby.
Oh.
Well, while we do wait for questions, and Brian, interrupt me if one pops up.
Yeah.
But I'll go ahead and make a couple announcements. So please feel free to keep sending in your questions, your comments, or if you maybe have a funny meme you want to share with us, if you can get in the chat box. I'm not sure if you can upload them or not, but we do have a couple of webinars coming up that we want to share with you. Our goal is to do 6 a year, but obviously COVID had bigger plans for us. And so we are taking suggestions from people, and one came from Rita Wheeler, and she's taken the lead, and some of her colleagues and her are going to show how to design resilient courses for easy transition from in-seat to virtual using Canvas and Zoom. We are looking at next week for that, but still finalizing the date, so stay tuned. Also this month, next month, August, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But also in August, Keith Fuller will lead a discussion to help guide you and your campus to maintaining your diversity and inclusion efforts during this time. In September, Andrew Crocker of OTC and Jacob Wilson from Campus Select will talk to us about voter engagement with an emphasis of getting the word out to students, especially during this time where students might not be on campus. Also in September, we will have an HR workshop. Stay tuned for more information on all of these. We will probably be looking to moving that virtual. So stay tuned as we navigate these times. And of course, we want you to share your experience today using the hashtag #MyMCCA. I want to see some selfies of you in front of your computer, maybe with Brian or Karen's face in the background. Please share those on social. Oh, Robin, thank you. Great presentations. Oh, yes. So the slides will be available now that everyone has given their presentations. The presenters will send them to us, and we will share those with everyone that registered via the email you provided us in the registration. So any documents they used, I've asked Erica to send us all the books she recommended, as well as all the diagrams she provided on Tuesday, all of these presentations, and of course, the recording. Oh, thank you, Brandy. Very sweet of you. So if we don't have any more questions, thank you, Laura. If we don't have any more questions or comments,
Hey, Kaylin. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. So I looked up the which Ross am I during quarantine?
Yes.
I would say I'm somewhere between, I oscillate between 4, where he's like pent up, frustrated, with his hands in front of his face, and 1 where he's just screaming all the time.
Yeah, a lot of people have one.
Yeah. So, just while it's okay, while I have everybody here, just from my position here at MCCA, I just want to thank all of you for the work that you're doing on your campuses. I never want to miss an opportunity to thank you because, frankly, we couldn't do what we do without you, and the colleges wouldn't be as successful as they are without our classified staff. And I genuinely mean that. And I know that this is a very weird and a very difficult time. And I think it was poised to be a really good time financially for the community colleges. And, because of unprecedented circumstances that were out of our control, all of our collective control, we're finding ourselves in a really difficult spot. And, Caitlin and I have had many conversations. We both have young kids at home, and both she and I and our spouses work full time. I don't know how people are doing it all, right? If you are someone who has to take care of, children, or you have other family members that you're caring for, or somebody who's immunocompromised and you're expected to do your full-time job, and now your full-time job has become even more stressful. Like it's a lot. And we're here for you for whatever that means. If there is, professional development that you would like, it's our job to bring that to you, and to bring it to you at, low or no cost. And so we're trying to do as much of that as possible. And we appreciate you, and we're here to support you in any way that we can. So please know that. And Kaylin, thank you to you. I have heard nothing but positive comments about the whole webinar series. And obviously we'd love to be with everybody in person, but this is the way we had to do it this year. And Kaylin, I appreciate all the work that you put into making sure that we're bringing good programming, great programming to our classified staff. So thank you.
Well, of course, it is fun, even if it is virtual, to connect with people. And this group has been amazing about being interactive, even though we are virtual. They've had such great comments through this whole series, and we hope you all appreciated it, because it has been fun to present. So without further ado, if there's no more questions, thank you all for your great comments. Very good session. Thank you, Brian and Keelan. Thank you guys all very much. It's been great to connect with you, like I said. And I hope that, again, share the experience. We love to see you guys on social. I hope you found the programming valuable, and have a great day. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, everybody.